Welcome to Noveleando episode 29, El Clon, where we had a leading man so nice, we had to do him twice. We're going to talk about conflicting cultural identities, the moral implications of scientific exploration, the irresistible hotness of having sex in a Moroccan desert, and how all of these things can lead to some very complicated sexy times. So get you some good hookah, relax, kick back, and get ready to ponder some of life's biggest questions, like, could you fall in love with your significant other's twin? What about his younger, sexier clone? All good questions that we will explore in El Clon.
Noveleando, creciendo latina, la fuerza que siempre nos más cautiva, aunque sea ridícula, dramática, intensa, romántica, la telenovela siempre nos guía. Noveleando, 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 noveleando podcast.
Hello! Welcome to Noveleando podcast. My name is Gloria De Leon, and this is my guest, Karina Contreras.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome, Karina.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
First time guest, long time listener.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote that for her. That's not true. I'm super excited to have you here. Karina is a famous actress and famous aunt of her niece, who has a lot of very nice things to say about her, and also great friend, longtime friend. So let's talk about some novelas.
All right, let's do it.
All right. Okay. So, first let me hear, like, what do you think about when you think of novelas? You could be honest. When I told you, like, hey, do you want to do this show?
Right.
Yeah, you could be honest.
So when you first approached me about doing the show, I was like, well, I don't know if I'm the best person for this because I don't watch them. I haven't watched them since I was, like, a kid. And I used to watch them with my grandma and my aunt. They were very into Simplemente Maria. And which was with Victoria Rufo, I think.
Yeah. Okay. See, this is why when people say I don't watch them, I'm like, are you sure? Because I get generally, these are the two reactions when I tell people I do a podcast about telenovelas. Mm-hmm. One, they get really excited. Like, no matter who they are. They could be like the whitest straight man I've ever met. And they're like, oh my gosh. And they'll remember one. Okay. And then the other reaction is like, I haven't seen them in a long time. But I'm like, but everyone's encountered them.
Everyone's encountered at least one.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I mean, they were just really into them. And so I watched them as a kid with them. But now, as an adult, like, I haven't really watched them anymore. When I think of novelas, I think of just, like, all those, like, memes or, like, those, you know, GIFs that people, like, post that are like screams in Spanish or cries in Spanish. Like, they're all just very melodramatic, but it's kind of funny. Like, it's you know, it's one of those things that's like a very cultural, like, significant thing. And I think I mentioned to you as well when we were talking about initially doing the episode that these are tropes that have been around for a while and they work. And even, like, with Jane the Virgin, it's like a spoof of telenovelas, but that was a really good show. And I guess you can technically call that, like, a telenovela, because that's kind of what it was. Like, it had all these, like, twists and turns, like, a novela has. And so, yeah. So that's kind of my background with novelas. It's been a while, but, you know.
But, you know, I feel like that's almost like the background of at least America with novelas.
True.
Because I feel at least... Even, like I said, even people who are not Latinos have at some point run into one. But especially for anyone who is, like, maybe grew up in a Spanish-speaking family, we kind of had a moment where it's like, oh, that's a family thing, and then we grew away from them, and then now they're changing into something different. Like, we see that with like, Netflix and Hulu bringing up new content, and a lot of them are based on, like, old stories. Or, you know. So I think they're evolving, and I'm not, like, defending them because there's, like, legit reasons why people won't watch them, because some of them are terrible. They're really bad. Like, there's some that I wanted to watch for the podcast that sometimes, people recommend things to me. They're like, oh, have you seen this one? So I'll write it down. And, like, there's one in particular. I watched episode 1, and I was like, nope, I'm not going to watch this. Because, like, I understand when there's conflict, it's important in the story to have, like, a resolution to the conflict. But when on episode 1, like, you're showing me, like, violence against women, like, it can only go so far.
Right.
So I was like, there's some that I'm like, no, I'm just not gonna do. But then there's just such a wide variety of novelas that it just forever keeps me interested. So today I'm really excited about this one. It's one of my favorites, and I know I always say that, but I guess I only pick the ones I like anyways.
Okay. That's fair.
So, okay, even like in back when I did the episode on Dos Mujeres Un Camino, which was one of the ones where I was like, it was not one of my favorites. It was one of the worst I've seen. And as I was going through it, I was like, that was hilarious. I do like that. And so then I was like, you know what? I think I do like this novela at the end of the day. So this one though, even though, it has its issues too, but it's one of my favorite because it's love meets science meets religion, and it's just like a whole mesh of like things that are like exciting to me. And so it's one of the only I think the only novelas I've ever encountered that deals with a scientific subject.
Okay.
So we're talking about El Clon. And now for our English speakers, El Clon means the clone, literally. So it's not a metaphor. This novela is about a man who gets cloned.
Literally is cloned.
Yes. Yeah. So they make a clone out of him. The funny part is that, like, the novela is, like, largely not about the clone. Like, it's about the surrounding people. Yeah,
I got the impression of that when you sent me some of the clips. Because not a lot of them really dealt with the actual, like, cloning of this person.
Right.
It was more like everything else.
Yeah.
So it's funny that it was called El Clon.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And you don't even really, like, in the opening credits for most novelas, you'll see a little bit of the storyline. For some of the novelas, you'll see the full storyline. You see
everything, everything.
But this one, like, you don't even really see the clone in the opening credits. Like, it's not really about them, but I will say that if you watch the full episodes, like the full 180 episodes, they do 180 episodes. So,
is that normal for a novela?
Yeah. Which, this is why I don't sleep on, like, the week prior to a release of podcast or prior to us recording.
I guess I just didn't realize that, but then again, they do come on every day.
Every day.
So, okay.
For months.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is stamina.
I know. I'm
Good
actually
job, actors.
really
Whoa.
glad. I know. I'm really... Well, they're, like, meant for, like, when you are, like, at home and, like, don't have to go to work.
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
And you need, like, romance and excitement in your life. And
at the end of a long, hard day at work.
You just come home, you watch other people.
You just watch people getting cloned.
Being sexy.
Being sexy.
Yeah, that's all it is. And
my God.
Like, this novela, if you do watch the full thing, they do have a lot of episodes that really deal with, like, the ethical issues around cloning.
Oh, okay.
So, but all of that actually revolves around the scientist who does the cloning. So it's almost like a little bit of a modern Frankenstein, like Dr. Frankenstein story.
Okay.
Because it's more about the scientist than it is about the actual guy who's a clone. He's almost like an afterthought.
Yeah, okay.
And it really delves deep into the psychology of the person who made him.
Okay.
So, all right. Let's get into it.
Okay, let's.
Okay, so first we're gonna look at. I guess we're doing this on YouTube now. I'm posting this on YouTube, which normally is just a podcast, but we're starting to do YouTube, and this is my first
Visuals.
one.
Woo.
I know. I even got if you're just listening, you should check it out on YouTube to see what my house looks like.
It's very cute in here.
But also, I try to make a little display.
I know. Look at the flowers. It's so cute.
Try to color coordinate it.
She even has pencils.
Yes. Okay. Right. Okay. Pick out the pencils and read them out loud.
I'm sorry. Es una trepadora.
Yeah.
Noveleando podcast.
Okay. Wait. Pick another one.
I'll say something different. Oh, this is great. Es una hipócrita. Noveleando podcast. All
I
right.
think there's 4 of them in there.
Odio la pobreza. Me too.
Yeah.
It's not fun being poor.
There should be one more.
One more,
and
okay.
One more, but you might have to pick through that.
Okay, yeah. Let me see. These are the same. Hold.
This
please.
is riveting podcast.
I know.
Content. I'm sure.
Maldita desgraciada.
Yeah.
And then followed by a slap.
Yeah, that's the most popular one. I need to.
I love that one. I need to take one of those before I leave.
You can take
please.
as many as you like.
Yes.
So those are guests for guests.
Awesome.
So yeah, and so also if you see the video, you will notice that I have my little Noveleando notebook, which is the one I've used for every episode, but no one had ever
yay.
seen it before.
Oh.
So let's find out what notes I took.
All right.
Okay, so this novela, it was originally a Brazilian novela that came out in 2001.
Okay.
And then it was remade in Spanish in 2010. So the original one was in Portuguese and it was dubbed, and it was really popular because it was dubbed into Spanish and people loved it, and then they remade it.
Okay.
And so like the original was done by the writer, her name is Gloria Perez, my namesake. And so Gloria, she is a very famous Brazilian screenwriter. She won the I'm sorry for our Portuguese speakers. I'm sorry for the pronunciation of things, but she won the Trofeo Imprensa for Best Telenovela for O Clon, which is the name of it in Portuguese. And so she also she was initially discovered because she was working at TV Globo, TV Globo, which is like a Brazilian TV company, right? A production house.
Okay.
And she was kind of had like a mid to low level position where she was writing small things. Like she had written a synopsis of an episode of like a different show that never got shot, but her synopsis made its way to one of their main writers, and her name is Jeanette Claire. Jeanette Claire had written many novelas as well, and Jeanette Claire, her and her husband Diaz Gomez, are like this writing powerhouse couple. It was hard not to go into the whole side story of their life because they also have, it's like a rabbit hole of cool stuff they did. And like Diaz Gomez's daughter now like is also like a very notable like novelist, and she is now going into WWE. She's going into like women's wrestling, and she's like pretty big here in the States. And so like it was a whole like rabbit hole. But so yeah, Jeanette Claire and Diaz Gomez, they were already like a power couple who was like, they had written a lot of novelas. And then so Jeanette discovered Gloria, and so she offered her to be her assistant, and then they started writing a novela together when Jeanette passed away. So then Gloria finished writing the script along with Jeanette's husband, Diaz Gomez. So they wrote it together, and then that sort of continued to launch Gloria's career as a screenwriter. And she wrote a lot of novelas. She really famously, like, I think because I like true crime stuff, I kind of run into random facts that I'm like, oh my God, this has nothing to do with the story, but I have to tell people. So Gloria Perez, she had like a weird true crime situation, like really sad, that happened to her, because so her daughter then became an actress and was working on one of her novelas, one of Gloria's novelas, and her daughter, like while they're shooting, gets murdered. She was like savagely murdered. She was like stabbed to death like 18 times. And when they found out who murdered her, it was one of the biggest crime stories in Brazil, because she was murdered by her co-star in the novela. So he was jealous of her because she was the daughter of the writer, so she was getting a lot of screen time, and he was like bullying her, and he was like, you have to give me more screen time, you have to get your mom to give you more screen time. Mm-hmm. And she was like, no dude, like relax. Mm-hmm. I'm not gonna do that. So he was pissed at her, but he was playing her like love interest in the novela, and his wife was jealous of their on-screen relationship.
Oh God.
So this dude and his wife, who for different jealousy reasons decided they need to take out this like little girl who's like 22 years old. So like they like savagely murder her, and they were arrested and sent to jail. And Gloria then used her writing skills, and she wrote one of the like first laws to protect like women against violence against women in Brazil.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So
that's wild. I mean, that's awesome.
In addition to being an amazing screenwriter, she is also like looking out for women and for just trying to protect people.
Yeah,
using her skills for good.
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately happened in a really, messed up way.
Yeah.
But that's awesome that she was able to make that happen.
Yeah. Yeah. So she's a really interesting person, and she so another thing that Gloria Perez did is she created another novela where during the run of the novela, they would run like pictures of missing children, like during the commercial breaks, in an effort to like find kids.
Oh, wow.
And so like during that novela, 64 missing children were found.
Oh, wow.
As a result of those efforts. Like, she's amazing.
Yeah.
And so she also received some awards because of Clon. She, the novela, as we'll see in the plot, one of the subjects in the novela is like substance abuse, specifically alcoholism. Mm-hmm. Well, actually both, alcoholism and then also narcotics.
Okay.
And I'm not exactly sure how the novela like really helped people, but I guess it did. And she received awards from the Brazilian Alcoholism and Drug Association, the State Council Anti-Drug, the FBI, and the DEA, which I didn't know were that invested in telenovelas in Brazil. But apparently the FBI and DEA gave her an award of some kind for her work.
Good for them. Awesome.
Yeah. So I'm telling you, novelas reach everyone. I don't know how that happened.
I don't either. I didn't know, but okay, now I do.
Yeah. And then let's see. She has, some few other notable works. She also wrote a novela called America, which is about Brazilian immigrants in the United States. And then she wrote one called Salve Jorge about trafficking of women between Brazil and Turkey. So the themes in her novella they do have to do a lot with like women and like the treatment of women, and also just like understanding people who are sometimes pushed to sort of the outskirts of our society. So yeah, that's kind of like, I think, a little bit about her. And then in the middle of all this, she wrote El Clon. And then when it got picked up by, I think it was Telemundo. Telemundo and Globo TV and Caracol, which is a Colombian production house, the three of them got together to make the Spanish version called El Clon. So, El Clon, the original one, it takes place in two places primarily, in Brazil and in Morocco. And then El Clon changed the location to Miami instead of Brazil. I think they were just trying to find another place that, like, people were half naked in. And
makes sense.
And I think that they just really wanted to highlight, like, the cultural differences between, like, a Muslim family and, like, or, like, a place that is primarily a Muslim country. And a place where, like, presumably there's, like, this is, like, Miami's the place where the clone is being made. So I think the implication is, like, there's no God. And so, like, and also just, like, seen through the eyes of, like, the main character, who's a young woman. Like, it's, you know, when you're a teenager, essentially, all you see is, like, people get to be free and wear mini skirts and wear two-piece suits.
Yeah.
You know? So, El Clon. Basically, it's about our main character. Her name is Jade, right? As in Jade. Her name is Jade. And she lives in Miami. We don't know what happened with her dad, except that her dad died. And when her dad died, she is a Muslim woman, so she should have gone to live with her male relatives instead of her mother. But her mother was like, no, like, she's my daughter. I want to keep her. And so the uncle that would have taken her in, his name is El Tío Ali, Uncle Ali. He basically was like, understood that the child should be with her mom.
Okay.
So he gave her up, and he was like, okay, you know, because I believe that Uncle Ali would have been related to her dad. That's why it stayed in her dad's family.
Okay.
So then her mom got to keep her, and her mom went to Miami. And so essentially Jade has grown up in Miami.
Okay.
But she's still very close to her Muslim culture.
Okay.
And she wants a lot of the freedoms she sees that other girls have. But she never, something I really like about this novela is she never, like, blames her religion. She actually likes being Muslim. And she really appreciates the traditions. She just wants a little more freedom. Okay. And so, so then, unfortunately, like, when she's, I want to say, like, late teen, early 20s, it's unclear what her age is.
Okay.
But she's...
It was a little unclear. I was like,
Yeah.
is she old enough to...
Yeah.
Like, do certain things, or is she not? I don't know.
Yeah.
But okay, we'll just go with it.
Yeah, and that's sort of intentional because you get that she's out of, like, she's not a high school age kid because she's not going to school. I don't really know how they had money, to be honest. Like, I think her mom worked or something.
Okay.
But she wasn't working. She wasn't going to school. She was mainly just, like, strolling the beach being sad. Like, that was her main pastime.
Okay.
And from what I could tell from episode 1.
Okay.
And so she's, like, about college aged. And she wants to study. She wants to get into, I think she wants to do, like, med school or something like that. But she's trying to convince her mom to essentially just let her go outside of the house and, like, well, she's allowed to go out, but she's not allowed to go to, like, clubs or dancing or anything like that.
Okay.
And she has this fight with her mom, and her mom is like, no, like, you're not like those girls. Like, we are different, and if we respect their way of life, they have to respect ours. And she's like, okay, but I just want to go out.
Yeah.
And so she comes home, and, like, her mother is, like, passed out, and essentially her mother passes away. So now she's left, and she, like, I guess kind of orphaned, but she, even though she's not a minor, she doesn't have a way of surviving on her own.
Well, because she doesn't work, she doesn't do much of anything.
Yeah, so she doesn't
even know how to fend for herself, right? Okay.
So then, basically her family, her tío Ali, he's like, come stay with my family. And she's like, all right, cool, yeah, I'm going to go to Morocco, be with family. She's kind of excited because she has a cousin that's around her same age, her cousin Latifa. And it's really sweet. They have such a cute, like, cousin relationship. And when they first see each other, they're like, they have it, Latifa. They're so cute.
By the way, I love that her name is Latifah, because it made me think of Queen Latifah.
Oh, yeah.
And I immediately was like, UNITY.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. It was just me. That's all.
Oh, no. I was totally thinking of Queen Latifah, too, because later in the story, there's a character named Khadija, which is Khadija.
Oh, my God. From Living Single. Okay.
So
I feel like there was some influence there, maybe.
This one goes out to Queen Latifah.
Hey.
That owns herself.
Oh, man. Okay. Continue. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, so then she shows up, and, like, they're like, cousins. And also, like, they never explain what happened to Latifa's, like, her parents. I don't know why she's also with El Tío Ali, but he's not her dad. Like, she's also his niece. And she lives, like,
right.
El Tío Ali, from what I gather, he has quite a bit of money. And I know this because he has 4 wives. And according to what they were explaining, you can only have as many wives as you can support. And you have to provide equally for all of them. Like, that's one of the tenets, right?
Okay.
And so he has a lot of money. He has some kind of business. And so he becomes, I suppose, the default caretaker of these 2 cousins.
Okay.
And I don't even know if he has children. I assume he does. He has 4 wives.
Right.
I've never seen his children in the story. Like,
do you ever see the wives?
There are scenes where I think that they kind of are in the background, but they never.
They're not like central characters to anything. They're kind of just in the background.
No,
okay.
Yeah. So essentially, like, he lives at his house, and in his house are, like, his servants and Latifa and Jade, and then they have, like, their, like, nanny, like the nanny that raised Latifa, and her name is Zoraida. And so Zoraida is essentially the maternal figure.
Okay.
In this. And she's like the nanny, right? And she's the one that like protects them in a lot of cases, like when they're being crazy, when they're being crazy teenagers.
Got it. Okay.
So then she goes to Morocco. So meanwhile, back in Miami, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so there's this very wealthy family. Led by the patriarch. His name is Leonardo Ferrer, right? Because it has to be like the big, right? Leonardo Ferrer, not Leo.
Right.
And so Leonardo Ferrer, he has 2 sons, and they're twins. His sons are Lucas and Diego.
Okay.
Lucas, he just wants to play music all day. He's that very rich kid who has 0 interest in business, and he wants to like live off the grid and be a musician. Okay. His dad is like, no, you're my son. I have 2 sons, and you're both gonna work for my company. Yeah. He's like, Diego's gonna be. I think he distributed like responsibilities. Like Diego was gonna be the administrator, and then Lucas was going to be the lawyer, the attorney, or something like that, right? Okay. So he already picked what he needed his sons to do. Okay. And they don't have a mom either. Leonardo's... What is with all
the moms in this? Like,
I know,
why are they all gone?
They always have to have a... I know. It's not good to be a mom on TV.
I guess not.
No. I mean, Disney has proven that many a time.
I mean, okay, fine. I'll give you that.
Because the stories are like about sad men, right? Yeah. So they don't have a mom, and like their mom passed away like a long time ago. She passed away from cancer, and she had some kind of like mole that went unchecked, and then she died of cancer. Like that was the story. And because of that, the twins, they have a mole on their back that their dad is always harassing them or hounding them. He's like, go get it checked, go get it checked. They're like, yeah, we'll do it, Dad. But they're also like kind of late teens or early 20s, I'm not sure. They're college age as well. Okay. And so then basically Diego, because he is following the dad's footsteps, he's sort of like the preferred son. Diego is also kind of a jerk. He is like a player. He's trying to help his brother get laid like the whole time, and his brother's like, I just want to play music. Like, he's so shy.
Of course. Yeah, he doesn't want to have sex.
No, he just wants to play music, and he's
a sensitive guy.
Well, he wants to wait till he falls in love. So
yeah, now we're really in like soap opera land.
Yes, I know. Sensitive young man. So it's just him and his guitar. And so now here comes in one of my favorite characters, who is unexpectedly my favorite character because I don't typically like this trope. Okay. So her name is Cristina. Okay. Cristina is outright a gold digger. Oh, okay. She meets Leonardo Ferrer, who she knows he has a ton of money. She meets him at like a bar somewhere, and she's good at being a gold digger. So she like looks the part, she acts the part, and Leonardo's like, I'm an old man, my wife is dead, my kids are growing up, I'm gonna have some fun. So he starts seeing her, and like they really like have a really good relationship. Leonardo's like in love with Cristina. Okay. At the beginning of the story, we're unclear on Cristina's feelings about Leonardo, other than that she just knows she loves his money. Okay. She loves having him spend money on her. Okay. But one of the crux moments in this novela is when Leonardo is going to Morocco for some business, and he brings Cristina with him, right? Okay. And then he's told Cristina, like, oh, like, my kids will be here, like, later in the day. You can meet my kids, right? He keeps saying, like, los niños, right? The boys. The boys will be here later.
So is she thinking that they're like kids?
She's imagining they're children. Oh. And so then she is like at this party, and who walks in but Diego Ferrer?
Oh God.
With this like fuckboy swagger.
No.
So he walks in and he sees Cristina looking all fine, and these two do not spend a word on each other. Oh. Not a word is slipped between them. Okay. They go into a little corner.
Damn. It's like that?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
So they have a nice time. They're like, and then they walk off in opposite directions. of this party. And then, like, the next day, Leonardo is like, meet my sons. And then she turns around and she's like...
the gasps
yeah,
in Spanish.
And then he looks at her and he's like so mad. He's so pissed. And she's just like in shock.
I'm sure like this whole exchange takes like at least 1 full minute of like going back and forth, like her eyes and then his eyes and then her eyes again and then it gets closer and then his eyes are closer.
Oh, I think it's like the end of one episode and the beginning of the next.
Amazing.
And this is why we keep coming back, because we're like, what's gonna happen? So then, like, of course, like, then he talks to her, like, privately, and he's like, you gotta get out. Like, you gotta leave my dad alone. You know, you're a gold digger, blah,
okay,
blah, blah.
that scene makes sense now, because there was a clip that you sent me where he's like, well, it was the one that was dubbed in English. That was kind of like a spoof. And I was like, why is he telling this chick, like, to leave? What's going on?
Yes.
That makes
he's
sense
like,
now.
you need to leave my dad.
Yeah.
And then she's like, no. She's like, I'm
like, no, I want that money, honey.
Yeah. She's like, I'm not going anywhere. So then he's like, you have 24 hours to tell him, or I will tell him. And then she's like, and there's this, like, really weird scene where she's like, I'll do anything so you don't tell him. Like, very porn-like. She, like, takes off her dress. And then they, like, kiss, and he's like, no, and he throws her out the door. So then, while they're in Morocco, there's this, like, awkwardness between them, and, like, Leonardo's like, what the fuck is going on with you and Cristina?
Yeah.
And then he just keeps telling him, like, she's bad. Like, he tells her straight out. He doesn't tell her what happens. He doesn't tell his dad what happens. He tells him she's a gold digger. She's just here for your money. She doesn't give a shit about you. Mm-hmm. And Leonardo's like, yeah, I know. He's like, she's hot. And he's like, basically like, she wants my money. I have money. I need a hot girl. Yeah. She's a hot girl. Lay off. She then, because she's afraid that they're going to break up, she makes a really stupid move too. And she tells Leonardo that basically Diego's been harassing her and trying to get her to sleep with him. And so then Leonardo's just, like, pissed at everyone. Okay. Because he's like, of course, you know, he was having a great time with Cristina. He didn't want anything to fuck it up. Mm-hmm. He can't, like, I mean, he's mad at his son, but they're still his son. He's still his son. So he's like, I don't know what to do with you two. Like, I'm just going to leave. Like, he's just like, I need to get away from both of you. Like, just, so he leaves. He goes back to Miami. Okay. And here comes the Dr. Frankenstein character. Okay, so his name is El Doctor Alvieri, which I found, like, real. I love that name.
Alvieri?
Alvieri, yeah. So Alvieri, he is actually introduced in the very first scene in the novela. The first scene is, like, essentially like this, almost like a montage or like a slideshow of, like, cloning that explains the process of cloning. Okay. And then it's him giving a presentation to, like, maybe, like, a cohort of scientists, and then he's explaining how the cloning process works, and that he essentially, it sounds like he's being paid to do this work, or at least some of his funding is coming from Leonardo Ferrer, because the Ferrer family, the reason they're rich is that they import and export, like, produce and, like, and, like, livestock. Okay. And so they want to fund cloning of livestock for their company. And so Alvieri, you know, he has this friendship with Leonardo Ferrer, and then Alvieri is actually, like, the godfather of the two twins of Lucas and Diego. Okay. So Alvieri's giving this presentation, and he's talking about cloning, and he mentions, like, but of course we will only go so far as ethics allow. And then everyone's like, yeah, woo. And then they show, like, this alternate version of the same presentation where it's Alvieri, like, his imagination of how he would have wanted this conference to go. Okay. And it's him giving the presentation and then explaining how human cloning is happening. And then he goes, like, and I've cloned the first, we've proven that human cloning is possible and it is successful. And then everyone's like, whoa, cheering him on, right? Okay. Because ultimately what you're seeing is that he only is held back by the opinion, like, he doesn't want to get kicked out of the scientific community, but deep down he wants to push science as far as he can take it, and if it's up to him, he would have no problem with human cloning. Okay. He actually really wants the adulation of being the first person to do it. Okay. so while Diego and Lucas are in Morocco, that's when Alvieri, who is their godfather, he's there too. And he's there because he's going to go see his good friend, El Tío Ali, like Ali.
Okay.
So Ali and Alvieri are just longtime friends.
Okay.
And so he's like, hey, Lucas, you want to come with me to go visit my friend? He's like, yeah, cool. And so they go, and that's like the meeting scene where like the two lovers first see each other. So Lucas goes to, this man's house, and it's a very traditional Muslim household.
Okay.
And then he just starts like wandering around the halls. And at this same time was when Jade had just moved in. And so she's like learning all the customs, and she's like, they're showing her like, oh, this is how we do the dances, and these are, the stuff we wear for our husbands, because we all want to get husbands, like that. This is like all the cool like things you have to look forward to when you're married. Okay. So then she tries on this like beautiful outfit, right? Like the belly dancing outfit, essentially. And so she's got the veils on, and she is like doing this like really cool dance, which Lucas happens upon when he's walking through the hallway. And he's like a young man who's looking for love. He's, and so he wanders through and he sees this like hot ass girl, barely dressed, but like in like not a Miami way, in like a more like culturally fetishized way.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. And so he is like in love, right? He sees her dancing, and then the moment she sees him.
Yes. I'm going to go ahead with that. I'm going to interject after this, though.
Yeah, so she sees him, and then like her veil drops because she's like startled. And so that's when their eyes meet for 20 minutes. And then they're like, everyone sees him, and they're like, oh my God, a man.
Yeah.
And then they like rush her off, and Alvieri's like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, you just go walking around in like a Muslim
somebody's house. Yeah. Okay.
Like, and he actually just he does say like, would you go walking around in somebody's house in Miami? Like, no, like that's just a weird thing to do.
Like who does
no matter
that?
where you are. Yes, you saw the scene.
So yes, okay. That answers, I guess, my first question that I was like, who is this guy that he's just walking around somebody's house? But like, because I was like, well, this is creepy. Like, who does that? Okay. But can we just address the fact that in this scene where he sees her for the first time, there is literally a like see-through curtain that's paper thin, and nobody sees him there. Like literally nobody sees him. Yeah. As she's dancing the whole time. These like three women are in there. Like, and she's dancing and she's doing her thing, and like nobody sees him until she happens to like drop her veil.
Well, he was very sneaky, I guess.
You can only suspend your disbelief for so long. I know. I'm just saying.
But they were, they didn't expect someone to be there, and she was very like doing her dancey.
Yeah, I guess.
Thing.
And from that scene too, so like you just said, like a very culturally like
fetishization.
Right. Yeah, I was very much like, okay, I'm getting very strong Princess Jasmine vibes right here.
Yes.
Like that's literally what the outfit looks like that she has on. And I wondered a little bit if that was intentional or not, because it's literally the same color.
I didn't even think about that. But yeah, it is almost the exact
It's like
same.
An exact replica for the most part, like
with
the
like
real version.
Just like more gold.
More gold,
like things that make sound.
Yes, like the little, chains and stuff.
Yeah, the shell. Yeah. But yeah, it is the Princess Jasmine. You're right.
It totally is. That's exactly what I thought. It was like, oh, okay. And then on that note, not to sound like an asshole, but I know people who actually do this kind of dancing, and I was like, this is not it. Like, if we're gonna do this, can we at least get some source material to pull from? I mean, again, it's a novela, but I was just like...
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty sure they just had, like, a choreographer. Like, I don't think they had, like, a culturally relevant or culturally specific dancer on set, I don't think they did, like, a whole lot of legwork.
I mean, I'm sure they didn't have, like, the budget for it, but it was literally, like, she was just grinding the air. I was like...
Yeah.
She's just, like... moving her hips like back and forth. I'm like, that's...
Yeah. No, but I mean, let's not give them excuses. They definitely had the budget for it.
Okay, fine.
They just didn't... It was just not where they chose to spend it.
I guess not. Yeah. I was just like, I'm slightly offended for this community.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I was very curious. But I've not met, like, a person, like a Muslim person who's Latina and has watched this. Because I'm very I would like to hear like what the opinions are.
Yeah.
Because I can only see it as an outsider.
Right. On that note, the other thing that I felt was a little bit confusing, and maybe you can shed some light, maybe not. When you first like sent me some of the clips, I was like, so are these Latins playing Middle Easterns? I'm very confused right now. Like, why are they speaking Spanish if they're from Morocco? Like, again, it's supposed to be like, you know, the Spanish version of this. But I was just like, these are Latins. And
so, yeah.
What?
Basically, like I said, it was a combination of like Brazil, Mexico, and Colombia who put this novela together. So the actual ethnicity of all of the actors, I'm pretty sure everyone is from those three countries. And probably more specifically Colombia and Mexico.
Right.
Because they're the Spanish-speaking ones.
Right.
They do have a lot of Arabic in it. Not a lot. There is some Arabic spoken within the novela, but all of it comes from the servants. So all of the servants don't speak Spanish.
Huh.
Yeah, so I don't know if maybe they did cast people who did speak Arabic in only servant roles, which is consistent with, like, even when you have a novela, like, about Mexico or about indigenous people of Mexico, only the servants are, like, dark-skinned, you know? So I think that's maybe what happened here.
Okay.
But in the novela, they kind of try to explain a little bit of, like, as far as, like, when Jade is explaining who Lucas is to somebody, she mentions something like, "Oh, he's from Miami, but he is Latino de Miami. Like he's supposed to be a Spanish speaking person in America."
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. I'm not sure how Jade is supposed to have understood Spanish.
Again, it's one of those
trying to explain it a little bit.
Things that you're supposed to just acknowledge as like, oh yeah, this is a thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So then, like, okay, so
they meet and then stare at each other for 20 minutes.
And now they're in love, right? Okay. So now our love story begins. And then, so basically, El Tío Ali is looking for a husband for Latifa. And Latifa's like so excited to get married. Like, this is what she's been living up to. You know, she is like a romantic. And it's not like she has been tricked into it or anything. Okay. She's just a romantic at heart. And she wants to be married and she wants to, like, have kids. And, like, that's just her thing, right? And so then the Tío Ali, like, finds her husband. And then, so he shows up to the house with his brother Mohammed. And, to ask, because apparently, like, they have a sister. So Saeed and Mohammed are brothers. They have a sister who is also just a really fun but, like, the most obnoxious character in this novela. Basically, like, they show up to the house to ask for Latifa's hand, and then El Tío Ali agrees. So Latifa's, like, over the moon because she's gonna get married. And then, like, the two brothers walk in. There's, like, a handsome one and kind of, like, a derpy one. And, like, a derpy one. And, Latifa's like, oh, God, I was the hot one. And so, like, it's the hot one. So she's like, woo! and then, I don't know, a few days later, they show up to the house again. And the sister asks Ali, like, was so-and-so Latifa's wet nurse? And he's like, yeah, she was. And she's like, that lady was also Saeed's wet nurse, which means that they are brothers. They are siblings. According to the rules of the faith, if they had the same wet nurse, they are siblings. So they cannot get married.
Oh, no. So she has to marry
so she's like,
derpy-looking one?
But Mohammed wasn't nursed by that same nurse, so we can do a little switcheroo. And then he agrees to it, and he tells Latifa, and he's like, so now you're going to be married to Mohammed, and Saeed will be marrying Jade. And Latifa, like, loses it. She's like, you stole my boyfriend. And Jade's like, I don't want your boyfriend. She's like, I don't want any of them. She's like, I just want to study. Like, all she wanted to do was go study somewhere. She's like, I'm not going to marry him. And now the uncle's like, oh, what am I going to do with these two teenage girls?
Yeah.
And so Latifa's, like, super mad because she wanted a hot one. Now she's like, oh, I guess I get this one. And then Saeed is now going to marry Jade, and Jade doesn't want to get married, and so then Jade doesn't, because she doesn't want to get married, she, like, comes up with, like, this variety of tricks and ways to get out of it. So, like, at one point she calls Saeed, and she's like, having never spoken to him before, she's not supposed to meet him until the day of the wedding. She calls him up and she's like, I'm just letting you know that I have, like, when I was young, I was like, hot water was poured on my body, and so I'm like full of scars. Like, I'm just letting you know they're trying to trick you. I'm not worth all the gold you're giving for me, blah blah blah. So then, like,
Hilarious.
they have the sister come in and inspect, like, both of the girls to make sure that she was like, no, it was just a joke. It was just a joke. But she's trying to get out of it.
Right.
And so she just tries all manner of things to get out of it. And this whole time, she's now run into Lucas, like, just around. And they've already kind of, because he's kind of following her around a bit.
Oh, yeah, that's hot.
And so then, like, so there's these, like, las ruinas, which, how do you say ruinas? Ruins?
Ruins? Yeah.
The ruins. Mm-hmm. So there's these, like, ruins nearby, and they always meet up at the ruins. That's, like, their secret hiding place.
Ruins.
So they go there, they, talk about their love, and they plan to run away together, like, multiple times, but then, like, she's, finds it hard to get away. Eventually, the uncle catches on that something weird is going on, because she keeps, like, getting lost in a place she's been to many times. Because she loses, like, when they go out with people, like, with servants or someone.
Oh, okay, right.
And she always, like, finds a way to skirt away from them.
Uh-huh.
And so he has, like, men follow her, and they find her, like, making out with Lucas. So then, like, basically, like, she just, at one point, Jade is, like, once her marriage to Said is getting really close, that's when Lucas decides he's going to lose his virginity. And so he sets up this little, like, camp for them. So, like, tent. And then, like, Lucas and Jade, like, get it on. Full on.
Was there dirt involved and sand?
Well, he made a little nice little canopy with, like, he laid out. I don't know how he got
There is dirt and sand. I'm just saying.
Yeah, no.
There has to be.
There has to be.
There's not. That's not sexy.
Yeah,
but I mean,
bugs, too.
Again.
Yeah.
Bugs, ew.
Probably really hot.
Yeah.
Like, and sweaty.
Because it's... Wait, they're still in Morocco, right?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Ugh.
But the shots looked amazing.
I mean, of course.
It looked like there was air
it always
conditioning.
looks sexy, like having sex on the beach, but in theory, great. In practice, not so much.
Sand everywhere.
Seaweed.
Ugh.
You don't want that stuck up in places that it shouldn't be.
Also, it's not sexy to, like, when it doesn't smell good. When, like, when the air doesn't smell
I hadn't even
good.
thought of that, but yeah, ew.
Yeah,
Ugh.
so it's probably, like, sweaty and hot, and they had no air conditioning, but it looked amazing, and they had a great old time.
That's all that matters.
Yeah.
in novela land.
Yes, and so you're like, yeah, get it in, have it, get you some, and get you some white guy dick. And so, because weirdly enough, like, there is, like, the fetishization of, like, the, like, Middle Eastern look, you know? But they kind of do the same thing with, like, the Westerner look, because she kind of, is like, oh, he's like a Westerner, but also, like, when the other family, like, they all at some point end up going to Miami, like, some of, like El Tío Ali, or, like, some of the other, like, Arabic men, they go there, like, there are scenes where they are looking at these Westerner women, and while they may be like, oh, like, it's, sinners or whatever, you see the montage of them imagining them being their wives. So there is, like, a both sides.
A dual, yeah.
Of the
okay.
fetish. I can't say that word.
Fetishization?
Thank you. I'm just going to point to you.
Okay.
When I need to say it. So then, like, they get it on, and then they tell her, like, oh, get ready for your exam. And she's like, what the fuck are you talking about? They're like, yeah, for when you get married, so that there isn't any question in case you don't bleed on the first night. And she's like, oh, fuck.
And she's like, well, that did already happen.
Yeah, she's
oh,
like,
no. Dun, dun, dun.
Like a whole episode of her just being, like, nervous.
Yeah.
And me being nervous. I'm watching it, and I'm like, what's going to happen? So the way they kind of justify or say it is that it sounds like when they take her to the doctor, she ends up just getting really lucky, and she gets, like, a female Westerner doctor, and she, like, kind of takes pity on her, and you imagine that that's probably why she's working there. And so she gives her like, virginity certificate, even though she, like, looks and she's like, she knows.
Yeah.
And there's just, like, a lot of knowing looks between them, and she signs her certificate.
Okay.
So she helps her out. So then, Jade and Lucas, they, like, try to run away, like, a few times. Doesn't work out. But then at one point, she's gonna, like, leave everything for him, and Lucas tells her to meet him at his hotel room, right? So then Jade goes to the hotel room with her little packed bags, knowing she's been kicked out of her house. Well, that when they find out she's gone, she's going to get kicked out of her house. She goes to the hotel, and she sees Diego. So Lucas tells her to go. But she sees Diego because Lucas never told her he had a twin.
Yeah.
So he sees Diego.
It's kind of an important detail to tell somebody.
Yeah, like, because they didn't have time for that kind of information. All they did was, like, make out and talk about love. And so then she doesn't know he has a twin. So she shows up, and then Diego, she basically says hi to him, and Diego's like, excuse me, ma'am, like, can I help you? Like, he completely, like, because he doesn't know who she is. Yeah. And she's just, like, heartbroken because she'd been told before, like, if you go with a Westerner, he's gonna throw you to the wind. Like, those Westerners, they're not reliable. They get tired of their women. They play with them. They leave them.
Okay.
So she's, like, heartbroken. So she goes completely back to her family. She is set to get married. The wedding goes through. She gets married to Said. And, like, on her wedding night, like, she's basically, he finds out she's not a virgin. And then, and there's this thing where, like, the whole family is, like, waiting outside the door to see, like, the proof. Like, they're supposed to see the, and that's the whole point of, like, the exam, that if there's no proof, at least you can be like, well, we have the exam, right? But they're waiting out there for her, the blanket or whatever.
Wait, is that, like, a real thing that happens?
I think it is, yeah.
Oh, my God.
I mean, I think. It's so, like, the bed sheet. Because when Latifa got married, because Latifa got married first.
Yeah.
Her husband brought out the sheet, like, the bloody sheet, basically, for people to look at it. They were like, celebration. And so then when that's going to happen, Said gets, like, really pissed, and he goes to the bathroom, and then he, like, cuts his hand. And he essentially protects her, and he lies for her.
Yeah.
And so that way she's fine, but he knows, you know?
Yeah.
And she tells him, she's like, you knew I didn't want to marry you. Like, that was the thing. Like, she had always been honest with him about that.
That's why he's kind of like, okay. Yeah. I get it.
Now, she's married to Said. And then Lucas has gone back to Miami. But while he was in Morocco, his brother Diego was in a helicopter accident. And so Diego is dead now. And everyone's, like, mourning, but they haven't told Lucas because they're looking for him. He, like, kind of disappeared for a while, I think, because he was sad about Jade's marriage.
Okay.
And so finally they find Lucas, and they bring him home, and they let him know that Diego is dead. Okay. And, you know, it's like, he's, like, heartbroken because this is his twin brother. And, like, Leonardo's heartbroken. He's also pissed because, like, he basically says goodbye to Cristina because she was what had made him be upset with his son. With Diego, okay. And Diego died when he was, like, when they were fighting. Yeah. And so he's, like, doesn't even want to see Cristina. He, like, writes her off. Okay. And that's also, like, the good son that he wanted to take over, like, the business. And then when Lucas comes back, like, his dad and Alvieri, who's the godfather of both of them, they just kind of offhandedly keep saying, like, oh, should have been you. Like, really? Like, and damn. Yeah. That's way harsh, Ty. Yeah. And so he just is, you know, like, completely heartbroken. And the only person he kind of finds some kind of refuge in is Diego's girlfriend. It's like, oh, Diego had a girlfriend? So Diego had a girlfriend. Okay. And her name is Marisa, and Marisa's, like, heartbroken because her boyfriend just died, but then here's this guy who looks just like him. So then she and Lucas essentially get together. Okay. And that's real weird. I know. It's real weird. I know. I'm like, oh my God, that's so weird. That's creepy. I mean, he looks just like your boyfriend that just died. Yeah. And she kind of makes the point of, like, oh, you look like him, but you're, like, nicer? Because the other one was kind of a dick. Oh, right. So she found, like, an upgrade. Oh, man. There's so many things wrong with that. I know. Okay. Uh-huh. So then they get together, and then the whole time Alvieri, his wife died, like, years ago, too. Because all the, like, important women in people's lives die, right? Yeah. So he had, like, one great love of his life, and she had died a long time ago. So he had never fallen in love with anyone ever again. And so his only, like, family kind of was his godsons, Diego and Lucas. And now Diego's gone, and he's, like, really sad. And so now enters the picture this woman who is just, like, one of the sweetest characters. And I love, like, her storyline. Mm-hmm. Her name is Dora. Dora, she's, like, she loves to dance. She is a manicurist, and she's dating this guy named Osvaldo, and she really loves Osvaldo, and she wants to marry him, and he wants to marry her, but he's kind of a player too. But she's willing to overlook all of that because she loves him. But the one thing she's not going to overlook is that she wants kids. And Dora is the manicurist for one of the women who works at Dr. Alvieri's clinic.
Okay.
So Dora is Luisa's manicurist.
Okay.
And Luisa's like, hey, why don't you come into the clinic and we'll do some tests, like fertility tests, basically. So Dora comes in and they're like, hey, you're perfectly fine. You can have kids. Like, there's no problem. She's like, well, then what's the problem? And they're like, well, maybe Osvaldo should come in and get checked. And he refuses to. He's like upset and he's angry. And he had told her he had like kids like with another woman, but it was all lies. She's actually upset that the fact that he had kids was a lie. Because she realizes he's the one who can't have kids. So she's like, I'm not going to do this. She's like, I'm not going to marry you unless you at least get the fertility test. And he's like, in a way, it's like a blow to his manhood. So he's like, nope, I'm not going to do it. So he leaves. And then Dora's like, I still want to have kids. And so Luisa's like, well, are you interested in vitro? Because we can do that. And she's like, sure. But she's like, yeah, I've saved some money. This is like the most important thing for me. So yeah, like whatever it takes. And she asks like, can you just, because Dora's a black woman. And so is Osvaldo, her partner. And she's like, can you just pick someone that kind of looks like Osvaldo? Because, like, I still love him. Like, I wanted him to remind me of Osvaldo, right? Okay. She's like, of course. Yeah, we'll handle that. So, meanwhile, while this is happening, Alvieri's just, like, in, like, the deepest depression over the death of Diego. So Lucas comes in because his dad has been hounding him about getting that mole checked out. Okay. So Lucas comes in to get the mole checked out. So now Alvieri has Lucas's cells. So then from his mole, which turned out to be fine. However, he keeps them like in the same place where he has the stuff they need for the embryos, right? And so
hell no.
You could say that like it's never really clear because he didn't do the implantation, right? But he kept them, and he prepared them, right? Okay. So you could say he was kind of just waiting for the right time. Okay. But he put them in the same fridge, and then when a different doctor went to do the in vitro for Dora, they grabbed Lucas's cells. And that's how the clone gets created. And then when Alvieri finds out that happened, he's just like paranoid someone's going to find out. But he's also like, let's be honest, it's probably not going to work. Like, it's probably not going to take because no one's ever cloned a person before. So he's like, I'm just going to keep an eye on her. So then he kind of like asks Luisa like for Dora's information. Like, I just want to keep an eye on her, see how her pregnancy's going. So then it's going really well. Oh, shit. And she ends up like giving birth, and then here's this like really white baby, and she's like, oh man. And he's like, well, I kind of just want to make sure you're okay. So he kind of sticks around, and so Alvieri like is monitoring Dora's like, the new baby, who they named Daniel. So that's the new character. The clone's name is Daniel. Okay. So he wants to watch Daniel because he's a clone of Lucas. Mm-hmm. And he wants him to be like Diego, right? And so he like provides for her, like, and she's like weirded out by it. Dora's like, you really don't, like, we're fine. Yeah. And he's like, no, here, I brought him these toys, and he gives him like nice things. And then at one point because Dora has to go to work, and he's like, well, instead of a nanny, save money. Like, I'll take care of him. And she's like, that's weird. But then Luisa, the other side story is that Luisa had been in love with Alvieri. Like, she was like his assistant or something. She'd been madly in love with him for a long time. Mm-hmm. And he was just not interested. He doesn't have that sensibility to fall in love. Okay. Like, to him, that door was closed. Yeah. But I think he found in her some kind of, like, a solution to the problem. And so he asks Luisa to marry him. So now it's less weird because Luisa can take care of the baby instead of him, because it's weird that he's a scientist is offering to babysit.
Okay.
So then Luisa almost acts as like a somewhat of a babysitter for Daniel. And so Daniel kind of grows up around like these very expensive things, and then he goes home to his like normal house. So in a way he almost grows a little bit resentful, and he doesn't want to be with his mom. He wants to be and he calls Alvieri dad and she's like, don't call him that, he's not your dad. But like that's
the figure that he ends up being for him. Got it. Okay.
So then like basically like years go by, and then
so he's like an adult at this point.
So now he's a kid.
Oh,
he's like a little kid.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's where we're gonna pick up on the next episode.
There's more.
There's more. How are you feeling so far?
Good. This was really fun, and it like I didn't even know the story had this many like layers.
Oh yeah.
It's like I knew some of the background because you showed me some stuff and like talked to me a little bit about it, but wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that's what 180 episodes gets you.
Yeah. So come back. We will pick up the next time. We'll pick up here. Thanks so much, Karina. Where can we find you if we want to look up your amazing acting career? Which you wrote an amazing play that I know is still in the works.
It is still in the works.
I really want to once it's out, you gotta let us know.
Yes, we'll do. Yes, you can follow me on my socials. So on Instagram, I am at kmarksthespot. And on Twitter, I am on it's the same thing, at kmarksthespot, with the number 4. So at kmarksthespot 4. And so follow me there to see any updates on my play. I'm also actually, there was a short film that I completed a while back that is now complete, and hopefully it will be going around the festival circuit, and then after that will hopefully be like widely released. It is called Sippin, and it's about, really quick, I'm just gonna mention what it's about. It's about 4 women, they get together to create a ritual of tears for like celebration and healing, and it was a really, really great experience. So if you want to see or hear more about that, that's also on Instagram at Sippin, so SIPPIN _short_film. And yeah, it was a really, really great project, and I would love for people to see it because I think it's, done really well, and I worked with some really awesome people.
We'll put the link, and then whenever we get that information of when people can find it, we'll put that up on our socials as well. So
yes.
Find it. Yes. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Tune in for the next one coming up soon. Bye.
Bye.